Good morning. My name is Hector Omi Martinez Rosado, Procurement Division Director for the Community Development Block Grant, Disaster Recovery and Mitigation Programs. In this pre-RFQ meeting, we are going to discuss the request for qualification number CDBG-DR RFQ 2026-02 for the A&E services under the Community Development Block Grant for Disaster Recovery and Mitigation Program portfolios, among other federally funded initiatives. Now I would like to introduce the Puerto Rico Department of Housing personnel. Along with me are Catherine Vidal Perez, Technical Specialist, Janice Ramos Dennis, Technical Specialist, and Maria Rodriguez Medina, Federal Compliance Division. Any questions submitted in this meeting will be answered in writing and published in an addendum. The information provided in this meeting does not change the terms and conditions established in the request for qualifications instructions. This meeting is being recorded and made available on the CDBG-DR YouTube channel. Regarding the procurement manual and contract requirements, all procurement process shall be conducted in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the procurement manual for the CDBG-DR, CDBG-MIT, and CDBG state programs to guarantee full and open competition and fair treatment for all persons or entities involved in each procurement process. The procurement manual is available on the CDBG-DR website, incorporated by reference and made an integral part of this request for qualification. Now, we have a presentation of the scope of services.
Good morning. Thank you, Hector. Good morning to all. My name is Catherine Vidal, and I will explain the scope of services and the expectations as required by the Infrastructure Division. This RFQ process will evaluate and rank A&E firms for a short list of qualified respondents that will be eligible for future contracts, negotiations with PRDOH and its superrecipients. All A&E services must be performed in compliance with Act Number 173 of August 12, 1983 as amended, and Act Number 164, 2009 as amended, also known as General Corporation Act. Based on specific projects, scopes of services, and selected respondent shall demonstrate its key staff and subcontractor staff meet the requirements and have the necessary experience and acknowledge the successful implementation of the A&E services. PRDOH reserves the right to modify any requirements, including education, experience, and professional certifications and licensing. Tasks and services that are expected as part of the pre-construction management services. Some of them are comprehensive pre-construction management and advice regarding optimum use of available funds, project scope of work, compliance with project eligibility requirements, development of schedules, avoidance of delays, changes, and disputes, enhancing projects design and construction quality, contracting and procurement, cost control, development and maintenance of budgets, risk management, coordination of ongoing activities at project sites, establishment and management of reporting system or PRDOH requirements. For the design phase, the respondents must perform, control, and manage budget, scheduling, implementation, design, environmental clearance activities, including design activities that may be performed by other entities under contract with PRDOH. Ensure project designs are both aesthetically aligned to PRDOH superrecipients requirements, responsive to project goals and project guidelines. Review design documents and make recommendations as to reconstructability, scheduling, and ensure implementation with minimal changes, issues in the field, and in compliance with applicable codes and regulations. Develop design schedule and supervise its implementation. Develop component cost estimates at every design phase. Ensure our permits and endorsements are obtained as applicable to the procurement strategy selected for each project. Any other required task to ensure successful completion of design and environmental clearance activities. On the procurement phase, in compliance with 2 CFR 200, Part 200, Subpart D, procurement standards and the procurement manual for the CDBG-DR meet and CDBG state programs. The respondents must provide support in the preparation of complete procurement packages and coordination of activities related to procurement of good and/or services for construction projects and inspection services. Provide technical assistance, coordinate efforts for revision to drawing and specification answers to questions and requests for clarifications, provide TA, technical assistance, to PRDOH and its representatives during procurement for program activities, provide TA during the evaluation process for bids or proposals received. Other tasks are necessary to ensure proper and successful completion of procurement processes for projects assigned under a contract. As an integral part of the design services and procurement phase, depending on the project implementation methodology, the selected respondent must perform a complete or partial design development in phases. The design bid construction methodology will include all 5 of the following phases: project concept validation, preliminary design, construction drawing and specifications, services during the procurement process, services under the construction phase. And the B construction would be design build methodology, will include the preliminary design and services during the procurement process. That would be phases 2 and 4 of the above mentioned. Also, environmental clearance and/or environmental review per 24 CFR Part 58 are expected. Environmental survey and assessments including field observation reports, determination of potential environmental concerns, environmental site assessments, record reviews to identify recognized environmental conditions in connection with the properties, field observations and testing to determine if a project site is contaminated, identify proper mitigation measures, among others. The environmental reviews are expected to initiate meetings with the PRDOH and its recipients, staff, and any other pertinent stockholders. Conduct environmental reviews, including preparation of publication notices as well as coordination with PRDOH. The publication of such notices, preparation of environmental review records, consultations with regulation agencies, feasibility evaluation of proposed projects, among other federal and local environmental review requirements. Also, additional services could be requested. So contractors resulting from the contract resulting from the QBS will include an additional services allowance for survey studies and test required to deliver a complete design. And with this, we end our presentation of the scope of services. We are now following the brief of the scope of services. I will explain where to acquire the RFQ documents and the important dates regarding this RFQ. The RFQ documents are available for download through our Agiloft platform. A link is provided on the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT website that will direct you to Agiloft to access the procurement process documents as presented on screen. Please note that registration with Agiloft platform is required to download and review the documents as well as to submit your qualifications documentation. To register, you must create an account by clicking Register. After completing all the required information for the participating company, you will receive an email to complete the registration process. If the validation email does not appear in your inbox, please check your junk spam folder. To access the documents, once registered, select All Procurement Process. This will lead you to another page where you can view an active procurement processes available on the platform. Select View for the reference process and a new page will open displaying the procurement process details. It is important that you select I am interested and click Save so that you may subsequently submit questions and your statement of qualifications. The RFQ package will be available under procurement documents. Please note that once you are selected, you have selected I am interested and clicked Save, you will be able to locate the process from the main menu under My Responses. The important dates for this RFQ are the following. All questions and requests for clarification must be sent and submitted through Agiloft platform on or before June 18th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. Responses to the questions and clarifications submitted will be published through addendum on June 25th. The scope, the qualifications due date are from July 14, 2026 at 9 a.m. up to July 16, 2026 at 4 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. The submission are only accepted electronically. The submission of inquiries and addenda. Each potential respondent must submit all questions in writing on or before June 18th, as mentioned before, at 5 p.m. through the Agiloft platform in the questions submission section. When the period of submitting questions is open, in accordance with the scheduled dates, the tab displayed on the screen will be enabled to submit questions. You must enter your question in the design field, specify the section of the procurement package and the page number of the RFQ to which your questions refer, click the Submit button. Once submitted, your question will appear in the table titled My Questions, along with the date and time it was submitted. After the deadline for submitted question has passed, the three fields and the button mentioned above will no longer be visible. However, all submitted questions will remain visible in My Questions table. Responses will be published through an addendum to the procurement process and will be included in the Procurement Document tab. All documents related to this process, including addenda issued by the Department of Housing, are and will remain available for download on the Agilove platform. All respondents must review the website to download any addenda issued for this procurement process, if applicable. Now, I leave you with Janice Ramos for further relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning. My name is Janice Ramos, and I will be explaining how to submit inquiries and SOQs for this RFQ. SOQs are to be submitted on the RFQ's due date stated in Section 4.3 of this RFQ. Access to upload the SOQs will commence 3 business days prior to the scheduled time and due date. The responses to this RFQ submitted after the prescribed deadline will not be allowed. Submissions of responses pertaining to the RFQ will only be accepted by electronic means. Respondents are advised that the PRDOH will neither require nor accept physical SOQ submissions, whether by courier, FedEx, UPS, DHL, personal delivery, or similar physical means. As explained earlier, after completing the Agilove platform registration and following the instructions that lead you to A&E services under procurement processes, you must select the Submission Bid tab. Before submitting your SOQ, you must complete all required fields and upload all required documents. Once uploaded, the documents may be viewed at the bottom of the page. It is important to note that for your SOQ to be considered, you must click the Submit button after uploading all required documents. We will now move on to explain this RFQ's evaluation criteria. The evaluation committee will evaluate based on the criteria outlined on the screen. The criteria below are listed in order of importance. Non-technical SOQ evaluation. The procurement division will evaluate all responsive SOQs to assess compliance with the administrative and eligibility requirements outlined in this RFQ. This evaluation includes reviewing the following sections. Section 6.1, which includes all mandatory requirements. Cover letter, executive summary, organizational documents, financial requirements, certifications, authorization request, key staff, which is allotted 15 points, and Certification Act 173-1988, and Section 3, which includes Section 3 and or MBE, WBE, or VE, which has 5 points preference. The SOQs that do not meet these requirements may be deemed non-responsive and excluded from further consideration. However, Section 6.3, preference for Section 3 business concerns, veterans and/or MWBE will not be used as a basis for determining responsiveness. Moving on to technical SOQ evaluation, the evaluation committee will conduct a comprehensive evaluation of all responsive SOQs in a fair and impartial manner. The evaluation will be conducted following the evaluation process described in this RFQ and will include a review of the following sections. Section 6.2, which includes the qualifications of the respondent. It also will include respondent's organizational structure for 10 points, comparable projects allotted 30 points, and finally, experience and capabilities, which will be a maximum of 45 points. Upon completion of the evaluation process, the evaluation committee shall establish a short list of qualified respondents, or SHOQR, where only those SOQs determined to demonstrate, the capability and qualifications necessary to successfully perform the required services, as supported by the documentation submitted, will be considered for inclusion on the SHOQR. Finally, we will now discuss the SAM registration. Respondents and first-tier subcontractors must be registered in the System for Award Management, also known as SAM, at the time of the SOQ submission, or initiate the registration process right after the SOQ submission. For more information, please visit the SAM website. There is no fee to create, renew, or update your registration. Awards will only be issued to entities that are cleared and not ineligible for award of a contract due to suspension, debarment, or HUD imposed limited denial of participation. Now we will leave you with Maria Rodriguez Medina from the Federal Compliance Division, who will further explain the federal compliance and requirements. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Maria Rodriguez, representing the Federal Compliance Team from the PR Department of Housing. We want to thank the Procurement Division for the opportunity to present on compliance and labor standards requirements. This presentation is prepared in English. However, if it is required in Spanish, please submit a request following the procurement protocols. Today, our agenda includes a discussion of the overview of compliance roles and responsibilities. We will also review the tools available on our website. And finally, we will cover documenting efforts, reporting requirements, and address frequently asked questions. The work to be performed under the contract resulting from this RFQ may be subject to the requirements of Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. Section 3 helps foster local economic development, neighborhood economic improvement, and individual self-sufficiency. It is PRDOH's policy to require its subrecipients, contractors, subcontractors, and contractors of subrecipients to provide training and equal employment opportunities to low and very low-income persons, particularly those who are recipients of government assistance for housing or residents of the community in which the federal assistance is spent, to the greatest extent feasible. The Department of Housing makes available a Section 3 policy guide on their website, both in English and Spanish. Contractors must read and implement activities as applicable and necessary. They are also responsible for their subcontractors ensuring the benchmarks are met. For Section 3 projects, the CFR has established the following benchmarks. 25% of the total labor hours per project should be work hours by Section 3 workers, and 5% of the total labor hours should be work hours by targeted Section 3 workers. Section 3 plan. This document template allows contractors or subrecipients to outline their strategies for meeting Section 3 hiring, training, and contracting goals. A Section 3 contractor plan template is available online in the PRDOH website in English and Spanish. This document assists in identifying new hiring and subcontracting needs, helps plan outreach efforts, and supports coordinators in managing daily activities. Finally, it helps you define compliance procedures and it helps you understand your reporting requirements. The Section 3 self-certification forms. These document templates help individuals identify if they meet the requirements to be considered a Section 3 worker or targeted worker. Contractors and subrecipients must make efforts to complete self-certification forms as part of their contracting and purchasing procedures, fulfilling their Section 3 business identification commitment. The businesses that are identified as Section 3 will be part of the database for dissemination or contracting and purchasing opportunities, as applicable. MWE. The work to be performed under the contract resulting from this RFQ shall be subject to the regulations set forth in the CFR 200.321. This regulation requires that non-federal entity to take the necessary steps to ensure that, when possible, all subrecipients, contractors, subcontractors, and/or developers funded with CDBG-DR or CDBG-MIT funds hire or provide economic opportunities to small and minority firms, women-owned business enterprises, veteran-owned businesses, and labor surplus area firms, consistent with Executive Orders number 11625, 12138, and 12432, non-federal entities shall make every feasible effort to ensure that small businesses, minority-owned business enterprises, and veteran-owned and labor surplus area businesses participate in contracting. There are various regulations that call for the inclusion of minorities and women business enterprises. The CFR, as well as executive orders, establish the participation of MWE firms which seek to ensure that, when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with the Federal Housing and Community Development Assistance are directed to minority and women-owned businesses. The Department of Housing has established an MWE policy guide. This is available in the website in both English and Spanish. You can access those documents visiting the website recuperacion.pr.gov. The MWE Policy Guide will identify that there are goals which apply to professional services, purchasing supplies, and construction contracting. There is a total minimum participation goal, which is 10% for women-owned businesses and 10% for minority-owned businesses. Contractors are expected to perform good faith efforts for contracting, subcontracting, and purchasing opportunities of $10,000 or more during the life of the contract. Here's a look at the MWE Utilization Plan. This tool assists in compiling data for subcontracting purposes. It helps you identify what needs you may have. It helps hold discussions on creating supplier and contractor listings and provides awareness of meeting the goal for the contract and tracking. You can use the link on the slide to go to the website and download the plan template. Here is a description of what MWBE companies are. An MBE, a minority business enterprise, is defined as a business that is 51% or more owned, operated, and controlled on a daily basis by one or more U.S. citizens of ethnic minority and or gender, and or military classifications and or veterans. On the other hand, a women-owned business enterprise is a business concern that is at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women. That must be citizens of or legal resident aliens of the United States, whose business formation and principal place of business is in the U.S. or in its territories, and whose management and daily operation is controlled by women. When we talk about certified minority or women-owned businesses, we are referring to those who have filed applications with federal entities such as the SBA and others that you see here on the slide. Businesses who are certified can provide proof of completing an application process to be officially recognized as a certified minority or women-owned business. If you are registered as an MBE, you should provide your valid certificate or other evidence in response to this RFQ. As part of its obligations to the Department of Housing, the contractor or subrecipient must carry out compliance efforts during the term of the agreement or contract, which will be reported by submitting the quarterly federal compliance report. It is duty of every organization to keep the preservation of documents updated accordingly to the policy on document management, administration, and accessibility created in your organization. The Department of Housing has established a quarterly federal compliance report submission process through an online link available to subrecipients and contractors to complete and submit the required information. This form is the method for reporting quarterly compliance activity and efforts on Section 3 and MWE regulations. All subrecipients and contractors are expected to have a system for collecting updated information for reporting on this form. PRDOH requires quarterly submissions from all contractors to be submitted on April 5th, July 5th, October 5th, and January 5th. Let's briefly discuss FHEO. Our package will also contain a model contract which outlines fair housing and equal opportunity areas of compliance. Contractors are responsible for ensuring compliance with federal civil rights and fair housing through their contractors, subcontractors, and so forth, ensuring that all necessary efforts are being made. The Fair Housing Act and Section 109 and 504 prohibit discrimination against the following protected classes of people: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, familial status, disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. The Fair Housing Act is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There are many executive orders, laws, and statutes that govern the non-discrimination of protected classes to ensure equal opportunity for individuals in accessing federally funded programs. Equal opportunity is afforded to protected classes through a number of these federal laws and executive orders. PRDOH has published policy documents addressing FHEO as well as Language Access Plan. These policies must be implemented by contractors and subrecipients. They are publicly available online in both English and Spanish. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the Department of Housing must ensure that all programs affirmatively further fair housing, access to fair housing, and that the programs provide equal opportunity for participation and employment. These are the definitions for reasonable accommodations. What is required by Section 504, which requires federally funded programs to provide requested reasonable accommodations at the cost of the program. And finally, the CDBG-DR and MIT reasonable accommodation policy provides requirements and guidance for evaluating these requests if they arise. PRDOH supports programs in the handling and evaluation of these requests. Limited English Proficiency, or LEP, refers to the person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. Due to Puerto Rico's high Spanish-speaking population, all entities and contractors using the CDBG-DR and MIT funding must seek to ensure both that a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English or Spanish will not place them at a disadvantage in the participation of programs. For that reason, we have the PRDOH Language Access Plan, which directs how PRDOH, its subrecipients, and contractors will ensure meaningful access to LEP or limited English proficient individuals. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention. Please remember to direct all your questions through the established protocols for this procurement. Thank you.
Thank you for participating in this pre-RFQ meeting. We appreciate your time. Please remember that any questions submitted during this meeting will be answered in writing and published through an addendum. To learn how to navigate the Agilog platform, please refer to the instructional manual available on the CDBG website. We wish you a great day. Thank you.